I'm delighted to introduce our presenter this evening, Dr. Signe Peterson-Fourmy. Signe has been involved with Humanities Texas program since 2009, when she was awarded one of our Outstanding Teaching Awards while she was teaching 7th grade Texas history. She taught social studies for 11 years at South Houston Intermediate and Pasadena ISD. In 2001, she earned her JD from the University of Houston Law Center, and after she left the secondary classroom, she went on to earn her PhD in history from UT Austin in 2020. Currently, she serves as the Director of Research and Analysis at Villanova University for the Digital Humanities Project Last Seen, Finding Family After Slavery. And she's also assistant professor of instruction in the Department of History at UT Austin. If you guys are not familiar with the Last Seen project, maybe Signe can give a little plug for it today during the webinar. We've had a number of lectures or webinars on that and anticipate doing another one this summer, but it's a wonderful resource, and Signe has been spearheading leading curriculum materials related to those that project. She's published several articles and chapters and has worked extensively on creating the curriculum that she's going to be discussing tonight on our Texas Originals radio program. So I'm going to, before we turn it over to Signe, I'm going to throw it to my colleague Kelsey, who's just going to give you a brief overview of Texas Originals.
Great, thanks, Liz. So as Director of Public Programs at Humanities Texas, I oversee the production and distribution of our radio series, Texas Originals. And I'm thrilled to be here tonight with all of you and my education colleagues to learn about how we're putting the radio series to use in the classroom. If you are unfamiliar with Texas Originals at this point, you won't be for long, but every episode is a 2-minute profile of an individual who had an impact on Texas history or culture. They air across the state on a handful of radio stations. We just launched season 3 last summer. So we're eager to get it on additional radio stations across the state as the year progresses. And right after season 3 launched, we dropped our curriculum materials that Signe helped us develop and that you'll be learning about tonight. Some exciting news with Texas Originals is that we recently had every episode, so that all 155 episodes translated into Spanish. So those translations are on the website. Each episode has its own individual page with resources and photos and Spanish translations. So hopefully you'll have a chance to check those out on your own time. And we're currently working with Austin PBS to get Spanish language recordings made. So we'll be able to air the program on Spanish language radio stations, and you'll also be able to use those in your classroom as well. So we hope to launch those Spanish language recordings later this year. Please stay tuned for more. Sign up for our newsletter if you're not already to get updates about everything that we're doing at Humanities Texas. And I'm going to turn it over to Signe to kick off the formal program. Thanks, guys.
Hi, everybody. How are you on this lovely Tuesday evening? Everybody good? We're all excited to be here. Thank you for coming. So I've got 2 primary objectives. And of course, as soon as I start speaking, my dog would like to steal my attention. I have 2 primary objectives tonight. First of all, I'm going to introduce you to the website and some of the resources that are available on the website. And then I want us to actually do two of the lesson ideas, right, to kind of immerse you in some of the resources that we have available. So I am going to share my screen. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the right page. Okay, so can you guys, is this the web page? No, it is not. Okay, let me put my glasses on so I can actually see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, that's the right page. Okay, so this is the Texas Originals landing page at Humanities Texas. From this landing page under their educator resources.
I got a higher grade than I thought I was going to get on my test today. Yeah, I got your test.
then you can find the curriculum guide, which is the overview for these lesson plan ideas. I'll take you through the Meet the Originals, which we will use, or you can use for warm-ups, and a couple of lesson ideas that are here and some tools to help you bring these things into your classroom. So the very first thing I want to do is to show you the curriculum guide. It's a general overview about some of the activities that we have. We have Meet the Originals, which are small, they're short little documents, right, that you can use for warm-ups, that you can use for supplements, that maybe you could use for extra credit or transitions for your students, that they would listen to the recording or maybe even just read the transcript of the recording and then answer a couple of questions based on the content. We have full lesson plans, which we're going to look at a couple of them tonight. And we have just kind of an overview of some of the supporting documents that we have developed to help you integrate these into your lesson plans more easily. We have a TEKS correlation document and an online resources. So let me kind of show you the TEKS correlation because I find this very helpful. So what we have done is we've gone through the TEKS and all of the Texas original people all of the people who have Texas Originals episodes are listed here so that you can see the individuals and where you might be able to bring them into your lesson, right? And then as you keep scrolling, these are grouped by time period. We have grouped by African American history. We have groups by women, women in Texas history, people around the revolution. So there's multiple ways here to kind of see how you might use some of these episodes together to create more comprehensive units. So this is one of the tools that's on the website. We have additional resources, so web pages that you can go to or have your students go to find complementary or supplementary materials to complement what you do with the Texas Originals in your classroom. And then we have, I'm not going to get too much into this tonight, but I do want to highlight this as a lesson option. You can have your students write their own Texas Original script. There's a comprehensive lesson plan here, a teaching guide, and a student planning document. So they can select a person, right? Anybody in Texas history, maybe they have a Texas Original already, or maybe it's somebody who's in the TEKS, but there isn't a Texas Original episode about them. And you can have your students walk through and do some research and put together an episode, including, quotes from their materials or a primary quote. So this kind of walks you through that process that you might be able to have use with your students. So that's not what we're going to do tonight, but I wanted to show you because I think it's fascinating. All right, so very quickly, I'm going to switch gears to my PowerPoint. It's a very quick overview, all right, so here we go. All right, so welcome to our presentation about Texas Originals. I want to share these amazing resources with you guys and help you think about how you might use them in your classrooms. They're developed by Humanities Texas, and we have audio recordings and transcripts available for each and every episode. So I'm going to work with you tonight to show you how you might use these in your classroom. So the first thing I want us to do, we're going to listen to this episode, but I have the content or the text up here for you. Let me find where that is. I have 97 things open. So we're going to listen to this. The text is up here so you can read along. So this captures both audible learners and students that like to read.
This is Texas Originals from Humanities Texas for the advancement of history, culture, and education.
Spanish explorer Alonso Alvarez de Pineda was the first European to set eyes on the land that would become Texas. His 1519 expedition mapped the American Gulf Coast, creating the very first document of Texas history. Scholars know little of Alvarez's background. He first appeared in the record amid the intrigues of the Spanish conquest of North America. In 1519, as fellow conquistador Hernán Cortés began his faithful campaign against the Aztecs, Alvarez set sail from Jamaica, journeying north to Florida, then following the Gulf Coast west and south all the way to Veracruz. Alvarez did not find what he sought, a passage to the Pacific. He did, however, prove to Spain that Florida and the Yucatan belonged to the same continent. He also mapped the Gulf Coast, making him the first European to document the mouth of the Mississippi River and the land that became Texas. At the end of his journey, Alvarez settled in Mexico on the Panuco River inland from Tampico. He then journeyed to Veracruz to inform Cortes of his activities. Fearing Alvarez's colonial ambitions in Mexico, Cortes turned him away. Their rivalry would be short. In 1520, Huastec natives wiped out the settlement on the Panuco, killing Alvarez. In some ways, he remains a mystery man of the Spanish conquest, but his contributions to the exploration of Texas stand.
For more information about this Texas Original, visit texasoriginals.org. Texas Originals is produced by Houston Public Media and Humanities Texas, with
All right, so one of the ways that I would use this in my classroom, you could use this very easily as a warm-up where you project the text as your students can read as they listen to the episode. And then what we have done is we have created a worksheet or a handout to go with each one of these episodes, right? So that as if you're doing a warm-up activity, there's a worksheet and there's 3 questions. So they're very short. The first two are checking for understanding. So what did they take away from the episode? In this instance here, it's when did Pinata first appear in the historical record? And the second one is find a passage to the Pacific, but he did gain important knowledge for Spain. So name 2 things that he learned. Very easy for students to do while you're kind of getting into the flow of class. And then the third question, whether it's going to be making inferences or coming to conclusion, it's going to ask them to think a little bit more deeply about the content, about the person, and about what they did or what they heard in the episode. So this is also on the web page. So all of this is here as a handout that you can bring into your classroom. A couple of ways that I think that you can also use these Texas Originals as warm-ups is to possibly play one, right? And then as your students are listening to the episode, ask them to think about, right, what to formulate questions about what they're hearing, about what they're listening to. What do they want to know? What more do they want to know? What is not included? What might have been omitted that they have questions about after the episode? So it's a different way to think about, this is what we know, this is what we're talking about, but what else is there? So you might have them do that as you listen to one of these in class, and then have them generate 3 questions of their own based on the episode. So everybody good? We're all here. We've got some warm-up ideas. We've got ways to kind of bring this into the classroom. We've got some ideas of how we can introduce these ideas to our students. So I'm going to jump into what I really want to spend a lot of time on tonight, or I guess the majority of our time. So we can use these short excerpts as warm-ups, right? We can use them as transitions. We can use them as ways to move from one lesson to the next, or to wrap up lessons. But I think one of the most interesting ways that we can use this is kind of end of the lesson or end of the unit, kind of a culminating activity, right? So thinking about how you can get students to put the different people that they have been learning and studying about and hearing about into conversation with one another, right? How you can get them to interact, how you can get students to really think about the person's perspective, that person's contribution to Texas history, and even how you can get them to think about how those people would have interacted on different topics, where they overlap, where they diverge, and you can kind of get your students to kind of delve more deeply into the content through that individual's perspective. So one of the lessons that we have on the website is called, oh my gosh, you're invited to dinner. It's you're having a dinner party, you're hosting a dinner party, and you're going to you're going to choose 4 people, right, to come to dinner at your dinner party. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. What I've done tonight is I've pulled from a very specific time period, the colonization and Texas Revolution, right? So I've pulled together, I've curated a list of people that would be relevant dinner guests. But if you wanted to do this at the end of the semester or even at the end of the year, you could open it up to your students and have them invite anybody from Texas history, right? And so that would require them to think more deeply, more broadly about some of the connections that they're going to make. But we start out by thinking about the essential question, right? How can you compare the contributions that multiple individuals made to colonization of Texas and the Texas Revolution, right? So then your objective with your students will be to have them identify and compare these contributions made by significant individuals. So if you're thinking about this, and you can unmute or you can throw this in the chat, if you're thinking about what you're required to teach and the people that you're required to teach around colonization and around the Texas Revolution, who are you required to teach, or who do you love to teach? You can go ahead and unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Who do we teach about the Texas Revolution? I can't see my chat. Okay. All right. So who are we teaching? We teach Sam Houston. We teach James Bowie. I love Jim Bowie, right? Well, not literally, but Sam Houston, Signe, William B. Travis, right? Okay, so these are some of the major players, right? These are some of the Santa Ana, of course. These are some of the ones that they get highlighted lesson after lesson after lesson, right? But one of the things, as a social historian, one of the things that I'm interested in is thinking about how regular people also participated and contributed to history, and how people that often get left out of the story contributed to Texas history. So one of the things that is nice about this is we have the big names, Santa Ana, Sam Houston, right? And as you have your students generate this list about the people that you have gone over, read about, talked about, up to the point at the end of the lesson or at the end of the unit, right? You can generate a list with your class. As a teacher, you would probably go through and have a list ready, right? These are the people that are in the TEKS. These are the people that you are supposed to have talked about, or the state of Texas would like to encourage you to talk about. And most of these people have episodes. They are a focus of a Texas original, right? The people with the stars are in the TEKS but do not have an episode. The people in yellow have an episode but are not in the TEKS. And everybody else has an episode and is in the TEKS. So if you're having your students generate this list, right, of people that they have talked about, having them do this is a great way to also kind of set up a review for maybe an exam, a test, an end of the unit kind of benchmark exam, right? To have them kind of think about who's who. As you're getting ready to do, so we've generated a list, right? We've got an idea of who we're talking about. We've got an idea about who this unit has been about or who it includes. So what this lesson asks you to do is to identify and evaluate the ways in which individuals have shaped Texas history, right? Requiring students not only to consider the specific ways these individuals have shaped Texas history, but also to weigh to weigh those contributions against how other people have contributed. So you can frame this assignment as a way to ask students to invite 3 or 4 people that they deem the most important, right, to this period, to this given time frame. So the one I selected tonight is colonization and revolution. Who the students find the most interesting, who the students would want to maybe sit down and have a meal with, right? And make a list of who they would invite. And then you're going to ask them, and we're going to go through this together, to identify, evaluate those people's contributions to Texas history. So as a culminating lesson at the end of a unit, right, you'd want to have students synthesize different points of view, different perspectives, right? So for this, here's our list of people. One of the things that I want us to do next, we're going to take a minute and we're going to think about this list as a whole, the people that you know, the people that you teach, the people that you're familiar with. What characteristics do these people have in common? Right? And this is one of the ways that you're going to engage your students with kind of thinking about the group, right? And then how might you break this group down into smaller groups? What connections can you make between the people on this list? So I'm going to give you a minute or two to kind of look at the list, think about how you might group them, how you might make subgroups or organize them into groups, and what connections you see between these different people or between the different groups. All right, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Let's just have a conversation. Let's just kind of talk to each other about what we're seeing, about what we're thinking, about how we see these. What kinds of characteristics do these people have in common? What kind of attributes would you use to describe some of them or all of them? You can put it in the chat if you are more comfortable there, or you can just unmute yourself.
They were some of the people that a lot of people relied on, or a lot of people looked to for confidence, guidance, um, all around, I guess you would say, influential people of the time.
Okay, that is a great way to kind of make a broad connection. They're influential. They have a broad range or scope of influence, right? They were leaders in some kind of way. That's a great place to start.
They were also resilient. They didn't quit when things got tough.
Okay, so they're resilient, right? They are going to keep at it, right? They're not just going to give up. Any other connections? Any other? They leaned into for wisdom and guidance. They were leaned into for wisdom and guidance, right? So this idea that they're influential, they're leaders, people look to them to see what is going on, to see what to do. Maybe they're kind of influencers, right? People are going to look at them and align themselves with them or against them, because it can go both ways. So that's one way to think about this characteristics these people have in common. That's a pretty good list. They're influential, they're leaders, they're respected, they're unifiers in some sense of the way. They could also be dividers, right? So how might you organize them if you were have to think about who you would put together? How might you organize this list into subgroups? Thinking specific groups that you can make. You say, okay, this person and this person and this person, they all fit together in this way. I'll give you a couple minutes to think about that. How could you organize them into groups? Anybody want to take a guess? Throw something out there?
You could put them on a timeline of their major importance, or when they were most influential. Just map out, when were they when were they the most influencing individuals at the time?
Okay, so you might create kind of a chronological, right, idea of here are the people that were in this place at this time, right? Here are the leaders at this time. How else might you kind of organize them into groups? What are some of the connections that you can make? Religious figures. Kelsey, that's a great idea. So who are a couple of the religious figures on here that you could see this common connection between?
Or are you asking me?
Yeah.
Father Miguel Hidalgo, Antonio Margil de Jesus, Fray Damian Massenet, they were all figures in the religious and mission system.
Okay, so that's one deeper connection that you can use between and within. So Christy Burris says women, perfect, right? You have Rosa Maria Hinojosa de Bale, you have Sarah DeWitt, you have Susanna Dickinson, you have Mary Austin Holly, right? So that's a subgroup that you could put into conversation with each other, right? They're all figures in colonization and the revolution, and then you have a deeper connection, right? So as your students are generating this list, right, as they're going through and talking about who we've talked about in class, then you can have them describe the attributes, characteristics, leaders, right, people that are respected, people that are influential. And then you can go to a subgroup like religious leaders, right? You could go to a subgroup like women, right, influential women, or women that contributed to this time period in some way. Is there another kind of connection that you can draw between some of these people? Impresarios, yes, Christy, you get a gold star. Impresarios, right? So people that are coming here with a common purpose, people that are coming here with a common experience, or coming here for that after they get here might have had similar experiences. Jeremy says leaders by era, Spanish Texas, Mexican Texas, Road to Revolution. That is a great way to think about it. And that I think bookends what Adriel was saying, Mr. Fenton was saying about thinking about it chronologically, right? You can get your students to see where some of these people might have lined up. Were they pro-revolution or were they anti-revolution? Right? Did they align more with Mexico or more with Texas? Were they kind of in the middle? Right? So you can have your students make some deeper connections within this group of people, right? So any other connections that we see? So we have women, we have impresarios, we have religious figures, we have people that were active in the Texas Revolution, we have events in time. Okay, so thinking about, oh, the different events they participated in. So maybe the connection is people that were at the Alamo, right? Or maybe now we're cooking with Crisco, we got this. Maybe they were all people that were settled in one area, or people that had some other common nexus, right? Some other interaction that drew them together. So this is the conversation that you would have with your students, right? You would have them look at the list, you would keep pulling at them until they start to make some of these deeper, broader connections, or these deeper connections within this group. If you're going to expand this, right, if this is maybe an end of the year kind of activity, right, and it's not just restricted to a list of people involved in colonization and the revolution, then you can really push your students to make some really, really focused connection between the people that they choose. And we can talk about that in a minute. So we've got a good group of people. We've got some common characteristics. We have different ways to kind of organize them into subgroups, right, to make them more manageable. We have different connections that we can make across and within the list. So the next thing that I want us to do, and we're going to break out into groups, right? We're going to kind of we're going to talk to each other because yay. And we're going to select 4 people that you and your partner, or you and your group, maybe 2 to 3 people, want to invite to dinner, right? If you want to read the transcript of the person, if there is one on Texas Originals, you can do that. If you don't need to because you're very familiar with these people and their background, then, go with that. If you want to read the transcript to see what information your students would be drawing from, what kind of resources you can provide your students to use, that might really kind of get you into that role to see what this experience would be like for your students. For each person that you decide to invite to dinner, because you're picking 4 dinner guests, for each person, you're going to choose 4 words that best describe them. Single words, so 4 words, right? Words that are specific, words that are evocative, words that if you kind of gave them out as clues might lead a student or somebody to figure out who you're talking about, right? So then after you're going to pick your 4 people, you're going to select 4 words for each person. And then as a group, you're going to write 2 to 3 questions that you would like to ask that person. So the idea here is that we're looking at that group. We've looked for some deeper connections. You're going to pick people that have some kind of connection to each other to invite to dinner, right? You're going to choose 4 words to describe them. Then you're going to choose 2 or 3 words or 2 or 3 questions that you want to ask them. Then you're going to write 2 or 3 questions that they might ask each other. So you're going to do a lot of generating of questions, thinking about if you're sitting down at a table with this group, what might that conversation be like? What might they be curious to know about each other? What might, if we're thinking about people that had a religious affiliation or had some kind of religious influence, what topics might they discuss? Right? And and always tie it back to, right, how they were influential in Texas history. How did they contribute to Texas history, right? You don't want to just ask them any questions, and you should make sure that you encourage your students not to ask simple questions that have a yes/no answer, right? You want to ask some deeper questions, like maybe you would ask Sam Houston, what his thoughts were on the Texas Revolution after the Battle of San Jacinto, right? So you can pick a time frame that your meal would take place and have them have this conversation afterwards. Or you can, I guess Sam Houston probably couldn't talk to Travis after the revolution, so you'd have to be pretty particular about when you want to set that kind of parameter. But if they're all sitting down at the same table, what would that conversation look like? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to break out into small groups. I'm going to give you 10-ish minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, I think, to do this. So introduce yourself to your small group, and you can, and Liz has put this in the chat so you can link to the slide and a handout to guide you. Okay, anybody have any questions before we go to small groups? I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions? All right, so go to your small group and let's see who you're going to invite to dinner.
All right, I'm going to open up the rooms now. And if you have any issues, feel free to come back and let us know. And we'll see you guys in about 10 minutes.
Okay, great. It takes so long to feel normal talking on Zoom again. Like, I don't know. Like,
Hi.
hi, everybody. It's so nice to see all your faces.
Yeah, we
Yay.
definitely encourage you to leave your camera on. It is good.
Yes.
It's for discussion.
It's so nice to actually talk to people, right? So how was that? Did you feel like you had enough time to kind of get going a little bit, or could you use a couple more minutes? What do we think? What's the temperature of the room?
Could have used a little bit more time. I personally could have. A little bit more.
Other groups, same? You want to go back for 3 or 4 minutes? Can we do that?
We totally can.
All right, let's go back for 3 or 4. All right, well, welcome back again. So here's what I would like us to do. Once we're all back in the room, right? If you feel comfortable or you're in a place that you can leave your camera on, I would love for you to do that. I'd like to take volunteers from the pairs or the small groups, and I would like you to read the 4 words that you came up, the descriptors for a person. Read one of the questions you would ask that person, but don't reveal that person's identity, and we can see if we can guess who that person is. right? And this is something that you can do with your students, right? To kind of go around the room and ask each student or each pair or small group to do this, and then see if the class can guess who they invited to dinner. So who wants to kick it off? Who wants to go first? You can just unmute yourself and jump in.
Okay, I'll go.
Yes, I love it.
All right. So, 4 words I chose for my person is patience, determined, driven, bold/brave. And the question I asked was, how did you become the spokesperson for Texas? And I didn't get to the other question, to the second part. So that's
Okay.
mine.
That's a good question. Anybody want to hazard a guess? Who is the person she's inviting to dinner? Anyone want to take a guess?
Sure, it's two. I'm sure this is a lame guess, but it's Stephen F. Austin.
You are correct.
It's not a lame guess if it's
Well, no,
the right
it almost seemed too obvious, and I'm like, it's probably going to be, yeah.
No, but that could engender a whole conversation, right? Because is Stephen F. Austin the spokesperson? Is Sam Houston the spokesperson? Like, you could engage your students, like, to think about, right? Like how that would go. I mean, maybe you're asking each person at the table that question, right? That's a really good idea. That's a really good question. Okay, who else wants to go? Be bold. Jeremy, you unmuted once. It can happen again.
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't get to the questions. We just got to we picked 4
Okay.
people, and I spent
Okay.
yeah. Let's see. Let's see. All right, firm, intent, visionary, and creative. And there's no questions, so that kind of makes it really hard to guess. So
Okay. But did your group have good conversations?
we had
around-
great. Oh no, we had great conversations. Yeah, we Mr. Fenton brought up some good stuff about a student that had done something very similar to the dinner, like this activity dinner with the guests, but it was done like digitally, and we got it a little off, not off. But we talked about that and just the different ways you can incorporate that. So,
But that's why we're here, right? To think
No.
about how we can take this and build it and change and use it in our own classrooms.
all right, I guess since I didn't come up with a question, I can just say it's during the Republic of Texas era or time period.
Okay, and your 4 descriptors were?
I'm sorry. Firm, intent, visionary, and creative.
Firm, intent. Anybody want to take a guess? Firm, intent, visionary, and creative. Can you give us another clue?
Who's the one person you would love to talk to the most if you had that opportunity at that time?
Anybody want to take a guess?
Sam Houston.
So that would be the very how you interpret and debate this. This could be like yeah, and it was actually Mirabu Lamar.
Oh, okay.
But you could honestly look at those same things and say I could say those about Houston. You know what I mean? Like you could interchange, which I think that goes back to what we were talking right before this, is how this can go and lead into different discussions, and you can say, like, yeah, you're actually right. It could be this. I see how to make them explain as to why they chose why you said Sam Houston and have to prove why you said that, and I could argue with it, but it'd be Lamar, and then we may come to some agreement like, yeah, those actually apply to both.
Sounds
And sorry, the interesting thing is like thinking about those commonalities that we started with. What do they have in common? What traits, what characteristics do they have? Those are so applicable to so many different people. So then you can push your students to get really very specific with those traits and where the overlap is.
And the perspectives may be different too. You may be looking at it from like a Native American's perspective as opposed to a Texas call, like a Texan, just see that you may see both on both sides, whatever. So,
Absolutely.
right.
Who else wants to go?
I'd like to go.
Yes, Rachel. Yes.
Okay, these are my 4 words: fierce, courageous, gumption, and bold. And the question that I would ask is, did you have any regret in cutting up your daughter's wedding dress for a badass, excuse my language, flag?
Okay, anybody know who Rachel's inviting to dinner? You're on mute, Christy.
Green DeWitt.
Yes, Green and Sarah. Good. That's it.
Yay. Okay, anybody who wants to go next? This is so much fun. I love this. This is so creative.
I think I'll try it.
Okay, yes.
I put down bodacious for the word leadership, inspiring, father of the Tajano Revolution, and played. Do I have to give him a question?
Yeah, what question would you ask that person if they were seated at your table?
What role did this person play during the Texas Revolution?
Okay, so this is where we can kind of start helping our students think about, you want to ask a how or a why question. Why did you do this? Or what motivated you to do this? Or, what was it like when this happened, right? So that you can delve into their experiences, right? And really kind of take
Okay.
Yeah.
So I should have put like, why did he want to take the role that played in the Texas Revolution?
Or how did he do this, right? Or what was the significance of, just like with the cutting up, how did they feel when they cut up the wedding dress? The clue there is specific enough to lead us to the answer.
Oh.
Because if you're talking about a role during the Texas Revolution, then that might be applicable to 5 or 6 people on the list.
Well, I can say he was recruited by Stephen F. Austin.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere, right? So thinking about, anybody want to take a guess about who the person is? Any more clues? Recruited by Stephen F. Austin, fought in the Revolution.
He was a politician, postmaster. He also helped Stephen F. Austin in choosing the first colony of the American settlers, would probably be the 13 colonies.
What do we think? Anybody have a guess?
Is it Erasmo Signe?
That's it. Yes.
All right.
And so when your students are they stuck, you keep giving more clues. That's why you have 2 or 3 questions, right? That you can come at it from multiple perspectives. And really, as they write these questions, they can really start to think about the multidimensionality of some of these people, right? Where they overlap, where they diverge, how that interaction would look. Anybody else want to share the 4 words and a question? Don't be shy. All right. So thinking about this, right? Do you think your students would enjoy an activity like this? Do you think it would kind of get them to ask different questions about the sources, to ask different questions about the people, right? Even to sit down and justify like who you chose to invite to dinner. Who made your cut? Who did you invite to dinner? Did anybody just want to give us who was going to get a seat at their table?
We chose Sam Houston, Lamar, Bowles, and Goins.
Nice. So, and based on what did you think that the common connection between them was?
Well, we kind of started off with Sam Houston because he's so strong. And then we wanted to throw somebody in there that was very opposite, that would make the conversation lively. And then some supporting actors, I guess you would say.
Nice. And did you have in mind like a specific point of conflict that they might have, or a differing opinion on something specific?
We didn't get to it, but let's throw in Chief Bowles in there. I would say Native Americans.
Okay, so that's another way to have students approach this, right? Like, is there an issue that you want to explore or a topic that you want your people to have a conversation around? Anybody else want to share the 4 people that you would invite or made your guest list?
Well, I had, like I said, I chose Barbara Jordan and Seguin only because both of them was politicians. And
That's a great start. You could have Sam Houston at the same table, right?
yeah.
And you could have Lamar at the same table. Like
Mhm.
once you have that common connection, then you can build it up. So for your invitation, for your dinner party, it would be a great way to do an end of the year project, right? Where you have your students look at the entire list of Texas originals, that all of the people that have episodes, and then look for connections, right? Look for, oh, I want to have a dinner party for women, right? Red Hat Society or something, right? Like I want to have a dinner party of politicians. I want to have a dinner party of artists, right? So once they kind of have that lens or that theme, at the end of the year, then that can be how they start picking their people. Or if you want to situate it chronologically, then you can have like, okay, this is a dinner party for people that were involved in the Texas Revolution, right? You can narrow the focus for them, or you can leave it broad and have them sift through and find the interesting people. And then the justification would be, how did you choose that person? Why did you choose them? How are they going to contribute to the conversation at the table? Any other ideas or thoughts or ways that you might be able to use Texas Originals in your classroom around this idea or something else?
I think it'll bring to life and to light some of the historical people that the students need in order to be successful, not only in 7th grade, but 8th grade as well. A lot of times it gets a bit boring and redundant.
And like I always say when I teach at UT, I'm a social historian. I want to know the lived experience. I want to know what ordinary people were doing, right? I want to know what their life was like because those are the most relatable,
That's why
right?
when you mention about a dinner party, we might even talk about what they ate, who made it, that type of deal, where they come from, just to see is there one thing that is common to everybody, or is somebody gonna have to, go in and to give in and be the person who is the bigger person, who is that person, and who's gonna do it? Can always be a question.
That's such a great way to bring in culture too, right? Thinking about different cultural groups and different meals and different dishes that they might bring that are representative of culture, right? That's a great, I mean, because where do we socialize? Where do we commune? It's at the dinner table, right? It's over food, it's over a meal. What would they bring? Having a potluck, right? If you do it at the end of the semester and call it like a potluck, then everybody can bring a dish and you can pick anybody across the spectrum of Texas history, right? So one of the things that I wanted to hit before I see we have 5 minutes. Any other last thoughts? I want to show you 2 other things on the website before our time is up. Any last thoughts about what you might be able to do with this in your classrooms around
I
this?
like the different perspectives. I think Jeremy touched on it earlier, the different perspectives, because your words of describing someone are going to be totally different based on how you're looking at them. I think that's so cool that we're teaching kids that now in our lessons because it helps just to have more compassion. So,
And some of the words are so cool, like bodacious, like, like the vocabulary, the opportunity for growing vocabulary and really being intentional, right? And specific, right? Because you're giving clues, but you're also making it really, really specific to that person. I think that's a really great way to kind of think about this too, right? So, okay, I want to show you, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to get this up here first. I'm going to share my screen. I want to show you where you can find, let me go back to, oh my gosh, if I knew where it
Yeah,
was.
I heard some screaming.
Yeah, it's, okay. That is not the right screen. Stop. Okay, I'm gonna try this again like I've ever done it before in my entire life. All right, so this is where I'm at. Let's share. So if you're on the Texas Originals website, I think that's sharing. All right, you can go here to the list of people in that there are Texas Originals episodes for. So this would be a great way to kind of get a survey of the land to see who is available if you're thinking about themes, or if you're thinking about an end of the year culminating activity where they have anybody to choose from, right? You can see this list here. You can see some of the beautiful images that Humanities Texas has acquired that go with some of the episodes that they have. So this is all on the website. The other thing that I think is super cool is that you can have your students write a script. So if somebody has a significant place in Texas history, and perhaps we don't have a script for them, you can invite your students to work together to write that episode, right? It's 225 words, it's very short. So this is a really great lesson plan, and it would be a really great way to kind of bring in that writing component in 7th grade. You could partner with your ELAR teacher to have to kind of do a joint project or a joint activity. And then I wanted to show you, of course, I don't know where it is. This and that guide. We looked at that guide. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that list so that you could see, get an idea of who has episodes. Any big takeaways from tonight? Anything that you're going to walk out of here and think, I want to do something with this? Anybody want to share any big takeaways?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a dinner party on Friday.
Here is my takeaway. Are we invited? Am I invited? Because I like to eat. Any other big takeaways? Anybody thinking about using this as a warm-up activity, like just the excerpt or the episode, and then or doing a larger activity with this?
Definitely planning on using some of these for exits and warm-ups. Yeah, both.
Awesome.
But we will be having some dinner parties as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love the idea of using them as a warm-up, especially for the people who are not necessarily mentioned in our TEKS, because we can embed those who are mentioned easily into our lessons, I feel like. But I think it's a great way to introduce the figures who our kids are not going to be familiar with and just get their name into their brain.
Yeah. And they're so engaging, and they're short, right? So it's not overwhelming. They're not if you have them read the transcript, it's not overwhelming. They'll be translated soon into Spanish. There's really short but pointed questions to go with them to have them think about it. I think I'm so excited that you guys are excited about this. If you have any questions, you can email me. You can contact Liz or Kelsey, anybody at Humanities Texas. If you want to talk more about this, I'm happy to talk about lesson planning or pedagogy or anything that you might find helpful.
For all of y'all's ideas. This is super fun. And Signe's right. If you have any questions, we can put you in touch with Signe. Just reach out to us. We just want to thank you for joining us this evening. Thanks, Signe, for leading us through the curriculum and ways we can incorporate into the classroom. I hope everyone found something that they can use. I want to come to your classes and do a dinner party. It sounds like fun. Any materials from today will be in the Google Classroom, including all of the links from the chat. We would love your input for today's webinar. You can fill out this evaluation. We really read each of these and get ideas for new programs and topics. I'm going to drop that link to the evaluation in the chat.
While Liz is doing that, Christy, I dropped a link into the list I shared organized by era into the chat for you.
That's not the link. Sorry.
Thank you. That's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Thanks,
Yes,
Kelsey.
ma'am.
And you can download all of these curriculum materials directly from our website on those pages that Signe was showing you. We've included links to all of that in the Google Classroom, and in the follow-up email, I'll include that as well. So everything will be easily accessible for you to download and use in your classroom. I also just want to put a plug in for our upcoming programs this spring. We have a number of webinars and in-person programs coming up over the next several months. I'd love to see you there. We have webinars coming up on reading like a historian with the digital inquiry group, teaching with Civil War photography from the National Gallery, AI in the humanities classroom, and one we just announced recently on celebrating 100 years of the Great Gatsby. So share this information with your colleagues in ELA as well. We're having in-person workshops on teaching the Civil War in San Antonio and Dallas at the end of February. In early March in College Station, we'll hold a program on teaching the literature of American wars. And in Austin, we'll do one for Texas history teachers on teaching 20th century Texas history in early April. And then finally, teaching contemporary popular literature at the secondary level. That will be at the end of April in Dallas. So we hope that you will apply to those programs. Hope to see you there. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, email us, call us, message us on Google Classroom. We hope that you use these resources and let us know how you make use of the materials in your classroom. We'd love to hear feedback, and please let us know what you think on the evaluation. So thank you again. If anyone has any specific questions, feel free to hang out. We can be here for another couple of minutes, but otherwise we hope to see you soon.
Thank you for your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a good night.